He gave up the love of his life for Burkina Faso. Years later, fate tested him again. Before we dive into the story, leave a comment letting us know which city you are watching from. Enjoy the story, everyone. In the small courtyards of Ouagadougou's university, long before the sound of rifles and rallies shaped his life, Ibrahim Traoré had known a quieter kind of dream. Her name was Mariam. She was not a soldier, nor a politician. She was the daughter of a schoolteacher, her days filled with books, her evenings with laughter. Where Ibrahim was thoughtful, reserved, and often buried in studies of geology, Mariam carried a brightness that softened his seriousness. She questioned him, challenged him, and in those challenges he found a kind of peace he did not find anywhere else. They would sit for hours beneath the mango trees, arguing over ideas. She teased him often. "Ibrahim, you speak like you're already carrying the world on your shoulders. Why not just live for yourself for once?" And he would smile faintly, replying, "Because if I only live for myself, Mariam, I would betray those who cannot." It was in those conversations that she began to understand him, not just as the quiet boy with ambition, but as a man whose love for his country was not abstract. It was fierce, almost spiritual. When Ibrahim joined the army, Mariam feared what it meant. He was young, idealistic, and unyielding. She worried the uniform would consume him, that the man she loved would become another shadow of war. But she stayed. She wrote him letters while he was away in the Sahel, letters full of hope and worry. At first, he replied with warmth, his words filled with longing, with promises of a future when the desert would no longer claim him. But slowly, as the battles dragged on and comrades fell beside him, his letters grew shorter, colder. Not out of love lost, but because each day carried heavier burdens. Once, after months without reply, she found him during his leave in the capital. His eyes looked older, his smile thinner. She asked him, "Do you still think of me out there?" He took her hands, calloused and scarred from the rifle. "Every day," he said softly. "But I don't know if I can keep you safe in the life I live." She held him tighter then, whispering, "I don't want safety, Ibrahim. I want you." But even as she said it, he knew safety was not hers to have, not with him. Years passed, and the nation fell deeper into turmoil. Corruption rotted the halls of power, and the people's anger burned hotter. When the uprising came, Ibrahim did not hesitate. He stood at the front, driven not by ambition but by a conviction that the nation's dignity had to be defended, no matter the cost. For the people, he became a hero overnight, the young captain in the red beret who had risen against the odds. For Mariam, he became someone farther away than ever. One evening, weeks after the coup, she managed to see him inside the heavily guarded compound. There was no laughter between them anymore, only silence heavy with unspoken truths. She asked the question she had carried for years. "Is there a place for me in this life you've chosen?" Her voice did not tremble, but her eyes begged him to say yes. To say that after the dust of war, after the burden of office, there would be a home, a family, a love untouched by politics. Ibrahim looked at her for a long time. He wanted to say yes. He wanted to hold her, to promise that the boy beneath the uniform still belonged to her. But in his heart, he knew the truth. A man who carried a nation could not also carry love without breaking under the weight. So he remained silent. Mariam's eyes glistened, but she did not cry. She simply nodded, as if she had always known this day would come. Then she turned and walked away, leaving behind the part of his life he could never reclaim. The palace grew colder. His circle shrank. Every day was war councils, intelligence briefings, meetings with foreign envoys whose smiles carried knives behind them. The young man who once dreamed under mango trees was now a leader who could not afford dreams. Sometimes, when the rain fell over Ouagadougou, Ibrahim would pause by his window, watching the drops slide against the glass. In those moments, he remembered Mariam's laughter, the light she carried, the life they might have built. But he did not regret his choice. Because every sacrifice he made, even the one that left him lonelier than any battlefield, was for the land and the people he had sworn to protect. And though the world saw only the soldier, only the president, deep inside Ibrahim carried a wound no one else could see, the knowledge that he had given up the woman he loved, not because he wanted to, but because his country needed him more. In his rare moments of solitude, he would whisper to himself words that only the walls ever heard. A man who loves his country must sometimes give up the one thing that makes him human. I sacrificed my love for the nation. May the nation be worthy of that sacrifice. And with that he carried on, leader, captain, son of Burkina Faso, forever bound not by what he gained, but by what he gave up. Years slipped by. To the world, Captain Ibrahim Traoré was no longer just a soldier, he was a symbol. To some, he was a liberator. To others, a threat. But to himself, he was simply a man carrying a burden too heavy for most. Yet in the silence of the palace nights, he often wondered about Mariam. Where had life taken her? Did she marry? Did she laugh as she used to beneath the mango trees? Did she remember him as more than just a ghost? He did not expect the answer to arrive one stormy evening. The palace gates admitted a delegation of civilians, doctors, educators, and aid workers, seeking an audience to discuss relief efforts in the north. Ibrahim sat at the long table, papers scattered before him, when his eyes caught a face that stopped his breath. Mariam. She was older now, her eyes marked by time, but her presence was unchanged. She carried herself with calm strength, her voice steady as she spoke on behalf of displaced families. But when her gaze finally met his across the table, the years between them vanished in a single heartbeat. Ibrahim's composure never faltered. To the others, he was the president listening with solemnity. But inside, his chest burned with memories, her laughter, her questions, the night she had asked if there was a place for her in his life, and his silence that had driven her away. Later that night, unable to resist, he asked for her privately. She came to his office, quiet, dignified, but her eyes betrayed the storm within. For a long time, neither spoke. The rain outside drummed against the glass, a cruel reminder of their first parting. Finally, Mariam broke the silence. All these years, Ibrahim, I thought perhaps you had forgotten me. His voice was steady, but heavy. I never forgot, Mariam. I simply buried it where no one could see. She looked at him, her eyes softening but still sharp. And was it worth it? The sacrifice? He turned away, staring at the maps on his desk, maps littered with conflict zones, borders drawn and redrawn, lives hanging in balance. The country still bleeds. Every day I wonder if it was enough. But if I had chosen you then, Mariam, I would have betrayed them. Her lips trembled as if to reply, but she stopped herself. Instead, she whispered, "And what of betraying me?" The night ended not with embraces, not with promises, but with the same unbridgeable distance that had once torn them apart. Mariam left the palace with her delegation, her footsteps fading into the storm. Ibrahim remained by the window long after, his beret on the desk, his reflection fractured in the rain-streaked glass. For the first time in years, his heart wavered, not for power, not for fear, but for love denied. But fate was not finished with them. A week later, intelligence reports reached him, a plot to abduct members of the civilian delegation that had visited the palace. Foreign hands, hidden allies within, moving pieces on a board he knew too well. And Mariam's name was on the list. The weight of the nation and the weight of his heart collided in a way he had spent years avoiding. For the first time, his personal love and his duty to his people became the same fight. He had sacrificed her once for the country. Now, the country itself might demand he risk everything to save her. The report came with chilling clarity. The convoy scheduled to leave Ouagadougou would be ambushed along a stretch of lonely road where the forest pressed close on either side. It was not only Mariam at risk, the entire delegation of educators and doctors were marked for capture. They would be leverage, bargaining chips in the cruel game of foreign interests. Ibrahim stared at the paper in his hands until the words blurred. His generals urged caution, argued to reroute the convoy or delay it until military reinforcements could be arranged. But deep down he knew, delays meant betrayal. By the time bureaucracy shifted, Mariam and the others would be gone. That night he made his decision. "I will go myself," he told his closest men. The room erupted in protest. A head of state did not walk into ambushes. A captain could. A soldier could. But a president, never. "I am not only a president," Ibrahim said, his voice low, dangerous. "I am still a soldier. And I will not allow them to take her. Not again." The rain was falling hard on the night of the ambush. Darkness cloaked the forested road where the convoy's headlights cut through sheets of water. Hidden figures moved among the trees, rifles ready, radios crackling. They thought themselves invisible, but they did not expect the Red Beret captain. When the first shots cracked through the storm, Ibrahim was already there. His unit struck fast and hard, ambushing the ambushers. The forest lit with muzzle flashes, shouts, and thunder, the chaos of war alive again. Through it all, Ibrahim's eyes searched, not for victory, not for glory, but for Mariam. And when he finally saw her, dragged from one of the vehicles by a masked gunman, something inside him snapped. He moved like a man possessed, cutting through mud and bullets. The world blurred into noise and fury until only she remained in focus. With a final, ruthless strike, he freed her. For a moment, they stood together in the rain, her breath ragged, his uniform soaked with mud and blood. Her eyes met his, wide with disbelief, with fear, with something deeper still. "You came," she whispered. His hand trembled as it brushed her arm, steadying her. "I never left," he answered. The battle raged around them, but in that instant, time seemed to stop. He had broken the very rule he lived by: never choose love over duty. But this time, they were one and the same. By dawn, the attackers were scattered. The delegation was safe. But Ibrahim knew the cost. Word would spread that the president himself had fought in the mud like a soldier. Some would call it reckless, others heroic. He did not care. When he escorted Mariam back to the capital, she walked beside him in silence. Only when they reached the palace did she finally speak. "You risked everything for me," she said softly. "No," he replied. "I risked everything for Burkina Faso. You were part of it. You always were." Her eyes searched his, as if weighing whether to believe. She saw the same man she had loved under the mango trees, the same man who had once broken her heart with silence, now breaking his own rules to save her. And for the first time in years, she allowed herself to hope. Yet even then, Ibrahim knew the fight was not over. The burden remained. He had chosen his people before her once. He had risked his life for her now. But the cruel truth was that both choices chained him. For Mariam, he had proven he would fight. For Burkina Faso, he would keep sacrificing. And perhaps one day, the world would finally understand. The greatest battles Ibrahim Traoré ever fought were not in deserts or palaces, but within his own heart, between the man who loved a woman and the man who belonged to a nation.